Welcome, everyone. Welcome joining on in now. We will be getting started here very shortly. Just giving a couple minutes for everyone to go on ahead and join. Looks like a couple hundred registered, so I'm just going to give it a couple minutes here.
Alex,
Okay.
how are you on
I'm doing
Wednesday?
good. I'm very good on a Wednesday. It's almost Friday, which I'm very happy about. I can tell you
I
that
love that.
much.
We get to Wednesday and we say, well, it's almost Friday. That's better than saying, well, it's almost Monday, right? So
Exactly. Glass half full kind of thing. That's the way I always want to look at life.
awesome.
All right. Thank you, everyone who has been joining us. Looks like quite a few are jumping in right now. Just going to give it about another minute. Quite a few of you are joining in. Just so you know, this session will be recorded. There will be an email that's going to be sent out afterwards that is going to have a bunch of information. All of these recordings can be found on our YouTube page, which we will talk about near the end of this session as well. On top of this session, with all the information we're going to supply you, we're also going to do a Q&A portion. So we'll talk more about that as we kind of dive into it. Just know you will have that Q&A function right here in Zoom to ask any questions you have, and we are going to give you the floor near the end of the session to ask any questions that are on your mind. Anything we covered, anything outside of that when it comes to the HELOC product, we are happy to answer those questions. But for those of you just joining us today, welcome. Tim, I see quite a few people have joined us. How do you feel about getting started?
I'll tell you, let's rock and roll. It's ready to go. It's halfway through the week and we've got some great things happening. You know, Alex, yesterday, our newsletter went out. Hopefully a bunch of people on the call actually saw the newsletter go out. You can certainly let us know. But it now goes out once a month and really focused on tips and tricks, best practices, what's going on in the market. And here's one I love. Best use cases. What are clients using their HELOC money for? And I don't know if you caught this or not, Alex, but one of the things that surprised me a little bit was last month we surveyed 600 people, roughly right in there. And I want to say the number was 14.3% of that 600 was using their HELOC funds for redoing or renovating their backyard. So it kind of caught me off guard. I think of debt consolidation, I think of construction projects, but here we are headed into spring full time. I'm in Northern California. The sun is finally shining, and it would appear that at least 14% or more people are interested in renovating their backyard. So, you know, kind of think of that when you're talking to your clients and what their use cases might be for needing a home equity line of credit.
That's pretty great, and especially now. I mean, the weather's getting really nice here in Nevada. That is definitely something that I hear a lot of borrowers are talking about, is just redoing their backyard, putting in a swimming pool, what have you. But weather's getting nice, and people are really seeing that now. So it's good to see. And I did have an incredible question already in the Q&A. How do we access the newsletter? Don't you worry. All attendees will get a copy of that after the session, and we'll talk more about that later as well.
Yeah, so Alex, on our last webinar, which was our first one, and by the way, everybody, just quick reintroductions, if you will. I'm Tim Rowen, and I'm coming to you from the Figure Sales Success Studio. It's kind of something new we're trying, and of course, we have Alex, who is our host and facilitating these webinars. Alex also leads out all of our training when our partners come on board for the first time. So Alex, awesome job. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So on our first webinar, we dove in and just really took a quick look, both from a loan originator borrower perspective of how quick and easy it is to use the lead portal to do an inquiry, to then diving into it a little deeper. Today, however, though, I think you want to talk about and show us a little bit about what it looks and feels like on the customer side. Is that right?
That is absolutely right. So if you have ever had any of my trainings before, you know that there are certain points where I will show the borrower experience. But what I want to do is I want to kind of link that. I want to talk about, hey, how do you actually interact with our lead portal system? How do you keep track of what's going on in your borrower's application? What are they seeing? How are you able to keep track of that? How are you able to help them? So this is going to be kind of a great continuation of our last webinar. But if you didn't join our last webinar, nor maybe you haven't had my trainings in the past, don't worry. This is going to be looking at that borrower experience from the ground floor, both what the borrower is going to experience, and I'm going to show you right there on Lead Portal exactly what you're going to see I'm going to give you tips and tricks on how to track that. And if you've never bet me before, just know I've been using this HELOC for about 4 years now. This is absolutely something where, just kind of coming from my own experience, I want to talk about very specific points in the application where borrowers may have questions, where they may stop and call you or email you with certain things. We're going to talk all about that today.
You know, Alex, I love all that. And when we start going through, just so you know, I'm giving you the warning here. As a core loan originator myself, I'm going to dive in every once in a while and stop and say, as a loan originator, it's important we understand this so that when we're talking with our clients, we can properly advise them as the best way for them to smoothly work through the portal. Does that sound good?
That sounds good to me.
So you're a distance from me, so you can't actually throw anything at me. So if I do that, just know I've warned you up front. So
I'll bank
yeah,
him
so
for
let's
later
dive
when you're
in.
in
Let's take
person.
a look. Let's take a look, Alex, and see what we can expect there.
Absolutely. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We are going to be taking a look at our lead portal system. So this is going to be our system for the way you interact with the Figure HELOC itself. This is something very common. If you're using the Figure HELOC, you should probably know it by now. If you've had my trainings in the past, you know I cover it quite well. Now, on our last webinar, what we talked about was that inquiry functionality, the way you can see what your borrowers pre-qualify for literally in seconds. So if you have someone on the line, maybe they want to redo their backyard, maybe they want to put in a very nice porch or something, you can recommend this HELOC because typically they're going to get funded in about 5 business days. So it's a quick and easy way to get money quickly. You know, they got the contractor on the line, they need money then and there. You can absolutely see, hey, will this HELOC work? You're going to know in seconds. You're going to take a look at that. So to do so, all you need to do at the top right, you're going to have a button here. Let's see, new lead. Click on that. You're going to start the inquiry. Now, I think I've covered this enough in previous trainings as well as we talked about it on the last webinar. If you were not there for the last webinar, just know I will be sending out a link to our YouTube page where we will have a copy of that recording where you'll be able to watch that in full to see everything we talk about and more when it comes to the inquiry. But here I have someone on the phone, I fill out this inquiry right, I fill in their information, I have a nice conversation, and bam, they get pre-qualified offers. The HELOC sounds fantastic to them, and it'll go ahead and send them over an email link to begin the application. It's that simple. So for more information on the inquiry, please see our YouTube page and more information about our last webinar. What I want to talk about today, though, is once you complete the inquiry, it's going to go ahead and send that email to the borrower. It's going to have a link with your name to begin the application. But now what? Now what do you do? Now how do you track it? What things are you looking out for? How best can you help your borrower? That's what we're going to be talking about today in this webinar. So we can see here very clearly, I have an inquiry that I started earlier today for a particular applicant. I started this. They had great offers. They were very excited. I went ahead and sent them the email by completing that inquiry. It's an automated email, so you just complete the inquiry and you're good. And in this case, we can see the status is borrower notified. Now, as a loan originator, as someone going in here in the inquiry, you're done at this point, more or less, when it comes to actually going through, filling out information. But what I want to talk about is best practices to really help them through, to answer their questions, to track their application so you can stay on top of your pipeline. So from here, they're going to receive the email, they're going to begin through. But even before that, I want to talk about how you can set up your borrowers for success. Now, again, it is an automated email that's sent out with a link to begin the application process for the HELOC. One of the things I do want to talk about is the fact that if you click on these 3 dots, you go to copy borrower link, you can copy the link where they're going to begin the application. This way you can send your own email with your own signature, your own information about it. You can set them up, set expectations on what they're going to say, hey, this is what you're going to expect with the HELOC. This is what you should have ready. You can send them a full email with the link to begin as a really good way to initially just have them set up for success. Because again,
Alex, I just want to
oh yeah,
dive
go
in there
right
real
ahead, Tim.
quick. I warned you. I told you I was going to do.
I love it.
Here's what I want to make sure everyone understands. When you go through and you see that you've done an inquiry and you've hit proceed at the end, and you see it on your pipeline as borrower notified, and Alex is going to show you what that email looks like going to the borrower. What I want to point out here is what Alex just demonstrated is one additional step you as a salesperson, and you remember, this is your relationship with the client right now, right? So what Alex is showing you is if you really wanted to personalize that borrower going in after you've talked to them on the phone and completing their application, that's where you could do it. You could copy the borrower link. You could actually preface with your borrower, hey, listen, Alex, you're going to get an email from from me and Figure asking you to complete the application. However, take a look for the email from me, right? And now you, the loan originator, can send the email and paste that link in there and help just kind of drive that conversion, if you will. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. And that's the biggest thing to me is driving conversion. So this is something where in the past when I help borrowers, the biggest thing to me is setting up, again, expectations. So couple things, and we're going to show them later in this webinar, but during that application flow, there's two big steps that I really like to set my borrowers up with. The first one is going to be identity verification. They're going to need a photo of their ID, whether it be a driver's license, a passport, state ID. We just need a valid ID photo. And this is something also where if they're on, say, maybe a mobile device like a cell phone, they can just take a quick photo of that as well. So either they have the photo ready or they just have their, ID like a driver's license ready with their cell phone. Let them know that. Say, hey, as a part of the process, you're going to need to upload an ID. Make sure going through it, you have that ready. That way they're not scrambling. That way it's not, something where they're going to have a bunch of questions on. The other biggest thing with this is the fact that it's a fully automated system when it comes to the verification process. So when they go through and they go ahead and they verify their ID, that's going to go through a system that is automated. So make sure to tell them, hey, have all four corners of the ID showing. Take it on a clear, dark surface, like a dark, wooden table is usually what I tell them, or countertop. Something that's not going to interfere. Make sure there's no glare. That way, when they go ahead and upload that ID or they just take a photo of it on their mobile device or tablet, it passes right away and they don't have to do it again. Another really big step that I really like to set my borrowers up on is income verification. Now, we have some fantastic documentation for income verification. Your organization's admins should have those documents, as well as we'll send out a copy afterwards. But keep in mind, we're going to do a full webinar next week. It's kind of a plug for income verification because it's so important. What I like to do is I like to tell my borrowers, have your checking username and password ready as a default. Not only is checking the best way for them to go through and verify their income, but they're also going to have to link up a disbursement account where those funds are going to go into. That knocks out 2 pages in one go. Or if maybe they do a different method, like maybe taxes for income verification, they'll have their username and password ready for their checking for that disbursement account page. Most of everything is done through the application. They just fill out some brief information, they're done. Again, it's a 5 to 10 minute application. Usually it's very quick, but those are the two big spots I really like to set my borrowers up with. So sending them a custom email with all of that information or just having that discussion on the phone is really going to help drive conversion. What would you say about that, Tim?
Yeah, no, I love it. And the one question I was going to throw out there to you, Alex, is when you talk about linking the checking accounts for verifying income, this is very interesting. So as loan originators, which I am to my core, we see link to assets or link to bank accounts, and we immediately think assets. I want to change everyone's perception on this. It's not regarding assets. We are linking to bank accounts for income. And so I am so anxious, Alex, for our next webinar, because I know you're going to really dive into that. But let's take it in baby steps and let's take a look at the borrower flow on this. And of course, I'm going to have more to say on that topic.
Absolutely, Tim. And I really do want you to butt in because I love your opinions. I love your thoughts. Let's take a look at it though, and I like what you said, baby steps here. So let me show you what that automated email is going to look like. So if we take a look here, this is just a generic automated email. It is going to obviously have your name on here. It is going to have your organization's name on here. But what it's going to do is it's going to simply walk through the simple steps of the application, letting them know what to expect. And then there is going to be a link for them to get started. Now, what's really nice about the lead portal system is it tracks everything in real time. So once they get to that application, it's going to update on your lead portal dashboard. You can track everything there. And we're going to see that. I'm going to kind of go back and forth. But the borrower just has to click on this link. They're going to set up a password because the same account is also going to be used for things like redraws and account usage in the future. But from here, they just click on the link, they begin the application, and they go through it. Again, this is a borrower-driven application. So in a lot of cases, maybe most cases, you don't necessarily have to be involved. They just go through it, they complete it, they do notary, they're done, everyone's happy. But if they do have questions, or if they maybe get stuck somewhere, that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about how to track that, how to answer really good questions. So Tim, you want to take a look at that borrower flow?
I do. I'm ready to go. I need to
All right.
redo my backyard. So the sooner.
I love that so much. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this. So what's going to happen here, and just for your awareness, this is a test website, so don't look at the names or the numbers too closely. But this is something where they're going to begin this process. They're going to have to agree to the terms and service and privacy policy and electronic communication policy, and they'll go through the application. This is not necessarily something I want to cover fully for this application borrower flow. I want to talk about very specific parts of it. So some of these parts I may skip through pretty quickly.
Can
For
we stop
example,
there just for 1 second,
oh,
Alex? I'm sorry,
absolutely.
you were
Go right
probably
ahead,
going to say
Tim.
this, but I'm going to jump in anyway.
Yeah, go right ahead.
When everybody backs up and takes a look at webinar number 1, where we did the loan officer inquiry, there is the last page of that where you, the loan originator, check off, I think it's 5 boxes, right, Alex?
That
And a
is
lot of
correct.
times I get questions like, well, what are these boxes? You're looking at it right now. These are the disclosures that you, the loan originator, have completed electronically. And now the borrower has logged in and they're completing them electronically. That's what's going on right there. So that just a little tie down there.
And one thing I do like to include with that is that this information will include what you selected on the inquiry so they can see it. But again, remember, they're not bound to those terms at all when it comes to offer selection. So we'll show you this page, but they're going to get a full receipt of that full inquiry. So I can take a look through and say, great, my loan officer here, Alex, in this case, he went through, selected these amounts, but I can see this full information. And again, it's going to have your organization, all that information. We're going to go through, these are state specific, so I'm not necessarily going to call out any of these individual documents, I should say. But again, Tim brought up the good point. This is just them going through, electronically agreeing, I accept. And now what's going to happen is they're going to begin the application in Honest.
By the way, Alex, I just noticed something, and this has actually come up. I've had some questions on this over the last several months, and that is sometimes a borrower will call their loan originator back and they'll say, well, I'm in the system and I'm trying to do it, but the I accept box isn't letting me click on it. I don't know if you all caught what just happened there, but just know the borrower has to scroll to the bottom for it to be a clickable button. Does that make sense? So just know, keep it in the back of your mind. Like if you have a borrower ask you that, well, just advise them to scroll all the way down and then that link will be active for them to click I accept.
Now, this page is I would say edge case. It doesn't happen all the time, but if on the inquiry you have to do a mortgage verification, the borrower is going to go ahead and have to verify this. What's important is they cannot modify this information, much like everything going through on the application and the inquiry. So when you do an inquiry, it's important to make sure everything's accurate and true, because later on, a lot of this information just simply can't be altered without a brand new inquiry and a brand new application. Keep that in mind. In this case, I'm just going to confirm this is something I had to do. And then we're going to begin the application in Honest. All righty. So let's talk about this page, because this to me is where I get a lot of questions, or at least I used to in the past when I talk to borrowers. This is where they're going to select their pre-qualified offer. Now, this is very similar to what you're going to do on the inquiry, but again, they're not bound to the terms, so they get to customize and select their exact offer. They just need to go through, select what's best in their financial situation, losing my words already. But this is absolutely something where they may call you with questions. You can also see there's always going to have your information up here with an email, so they can email you with questions. So this is something where if they have anything on their mind, maybe they want to discuss, hey, Tim, I'm thinking about doing this. How much do you think I should need? Maybe they want to discuss these these offers in detail, I should say. That's where you're going to be able to see all that in Lead Portal, and I'll show you that here in a second. But for the borrower, they can play around with it. You can see it updates in real time. This is a full disbursement product, so keep it in mind. We'll just go ahead and select the amount of cash we want. So it's going to be a full disbursement of $200,000. 5 business days, that's pretty good, I think. That's a lot of money very, very quickly. But whatever is available to them, they'll be able to select that full disbursement. They'll be able to customize by selecting one, the origination fee. This is a specific fee borrower paid out to us. The higher the origination fee, the lower the fixed rate's going to be. So they're going to be able to play around with it and decide what is the best, again, in their financial situation. And then they'll go through and select their term, in this case, say a 30-year term, and it's going to break it all down for their full offer. So they're going to get $200,000. It's going to let them know the dollar amount of the origination fee. This has a manual notary fee because it's California, we need to do manual notary. One big selling point is there's never cash at closing. So this is something they go through a quick application, they get it done, and then they get that money right away with just monthly payments. Makes it really, really nice for a lot of people to be able to access this HELOC. And then finally, keep in mind, they're going to have a total loan amount. This is how much they're going to repay with those monthly payments. But more importantly, this is how much they can redraw up to in the future.
A great
So,
point, Alex. Yeah.
thank you. This is definitely something we do get questions about. So that is something I just want to have you keep in mind is, again, all that's going to factor in so we can see that. Finally, we do have promotions from time to time, such as an auto pay discount of 0.25% currently. That's going to be pre-selected, keep that in mind. So it's already inclusive of whatever the rate's going to see. Now, if you've had my training in the past, a lot of this is going to be very similar to you. Let's take a look at it on the lead portal side, though. Let's take a look at what you're going to see as the LO, right? So let's take a look on lead portal here. Well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to refresh this page because I use a test website and it needs to. But in this particular case, we can see my applicant has gone now from an inquiry to a full application. That is updated, and it will update in real time for you. They are at the reviewing offers stage of this particular application. So let's talk kind of about that. Let's talk about how you can kind of track, see what's going on, as well as if your borrower has questions, well, how do we answer those kind of questions? First and foremost, borrower saw all those offers. You saw them initially on the inquiry. I don't expect you to remember those at all, though. What you can do is you can go into the details of this particular application. So we're going to go into the details itself. It's going to give us everything the system pulled. So we can see things like it's a manual notary fee, so it's manual notary and all sorts of information. But we can see the initial offers at the bottom. These are the same offers that were on the inquiry. These are the same offers that the borrower has right there on that offer selection screen that we just saw. So in this particular case, it's going to be broken down by term, and it's going to be broken by origination fee. So we can see on a 30-year term with a 2.99 origination fee, we'll have a minimum and maximum dollar amount with a particular interest rate on top of there. Keep in mind, this does not include promotions such as the auto pay discount. So you'll be able to have a conversation with them, you'll be able to talk to them, and then they'll be able to see and select if they'd like any of the promotions we have running at the time. Now, one other thing I'd like to mention as well is you don't have a fun half-broken test environment like I do, right? You can't necessarily see what they do unless you're in the same room as them. We will have a document sent out after this webinar session, and you may already have a copy from your organization that gives a full breakdown of every status, what they mean, and every stage of the HELOC with screenshots. I've created it myself. I think it's pretty, but this is something where you'll be able to track all the application statuses at a glance. So again, we're going to send this out afterwards. It's going to have a full breakdown of every stage of the application and what it means. But for this example, say I want to know what's going on. I say, okay, they're at the offer selection. What's happening? How best can I advise them? I can take a look at this document. I'll see actual screenshots of what it's going to look like for the borrower side. It's going to give me a description of the stage, a resolution of the stage, as well as where it's at in that application flow. So I can take a look at this, I can see, but again, it's an automated, HELOC on autopilot for you. Application's going to take care of most of the work. You can absolutely go ahead and just say, hey, all right, I'm going to answer questions for my borrower. I'm going to talk to them about those initial offers, and then we can see the resolution. In this particular case, is they just have to select their offer. It's the same for pretty much every page. They're going to have to do something and then just move through to the next page. But in this case, if they call you up, if they have email questions, anything like that, the initial offers will be here, so you can have a full conversation with them.
Alex, can you do me a favor and pull up that definitions page you just had up, please?
Absolutely.
And if you could just scroll to where the definitions were of the statuses.
Oh, at the very top here.
Yep. Okay. Here's the point I want to drill home. When Alex sends out the recording of this webinar and some other pieces, he will also be including this. I'm advising all of you, please, please, please keep this document handy, because you will commonly go, well, gosh, what does that mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? You're simply going to see the status in the lead portal. This will give you the definitions of those status. Now, once you do a few of these, and you will, then it just becomes automatic, right? You'll know what the definitions are. But as you get started, use this as a great resource. And it'll just kind of ease the pain, if you will, and not quite understanding what the status is. Thanks, Alex. I just want to really drive that point home, how important that document is.
No, that's fantastic. And it really does help keep eyes on stuff. We're going to see the statuses in lead portal. And that's something as well. I do want to plug this a little bit. I'm working right now with engineering to get a lot of this information right here in lead portal with you, so that you don't have to flip back and forth between all these different documents. But just know this one we're going to send out is extremely important, so you understand what's happening in a particular application. Because what's also going to happen is you're going to receive email notifications of certain milestones as they go through that application. So in this case, I would receive an email that says, hey, your applicant has gone ahead. They have selected their offers once they do so. So you can keep track of what your pipeline is. Now, again, you don't necessarily need to do anything. If they don't have questions, that's fine. But keep in mind, a lot of the times what will happen with borrowers is they will get to this offer selection screen and they will stop. They may think about it. They may want to talk to a spouse. They may be something where they're taking a couple days. If you see it sitting at the status, could be a good time to go ahead and follow up with them. Maybe it's been 3 days. They've been sitting around reviewing their offers. Maybe I want to go ahead and give this borrower a call just to see if they have questions, just to see if they want to talk about their individual offers. Because the stage itself is quite simple. They just select an offer and move on. But this is where there's going to be a lot of thought involved, to where they need to plan out financially, maybe the next 30 years worth of payments. So this is absolutely something where you can really help them out. And then from here, we can see on the left-hand side, there's only a couple other things they have to do to finish this application. From here, it's a pretty quick application. Again, usually about 5 to 10 minutes for them to fill these pages. But this is where a lot of people will stop, because they really want to go through and think it over. Alrighty, let's go ahead and move on from here. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and show some of the rest of the application as well, some other really key stopping points when it comes to this, and some really important information on kind of how to track through a lot of this as well. And then, of course, I see there's some fantastic questions here
Yeah,
in the
some
chat I've
great
been trying to
questions
answer.
coming in. Yeah,
We will
I'm trying to
absolutely
get to
do
them.
that.
We will get to them.
Yes, absolutely. You are all very engaged and fantastic, and I appreciate you. Let's go ahead and move on. These pages are going to be very simple. I'm going to kind of speed through them a little bit. Again, there's going to be some great resources when it comes to explaining these, but quite simply, they just need to provide more information. Marital status, they need to do their ownership type, financial purpose, they need to select their source of annual salary income, and then finally, they're going to give their social and a permission for a hard credit pull. Now, I had a really, really good question from someone earlier this week that was asking about this particular thing. They're going to give their full social and permission for a hard credit pull. We're not pulling hard credit yet. We do that after income verification. We want to make sure they can get through income verification, they select their disbursement account, and then hard credit's one of the last things we do as a part of the final offers. There's not going to be a big alert saying, hey, we're going to pull your hard credit on the next page. It's simply going to happen because at this point, they're giving us permission to do so with that full social and this authorization of them hitting I agree. So keep that in mind. They'll give the authorization, their full social. We're not going to pull hard credit till later, but it's going to happen in the background and most people won't even notice it. They'll zip through in a couple of minutes and then again be done. Next, they're going to go through the HMDA questions of ethnicity, race, and gender. They just need to select whatever's applicable in their situation. I'm going to put, I do not wish to provide this information. And they're going to go through an application summary page full of all the information that the system pulled and they entered. They just need to verify it's correct. And then we move on to the last kind of steps of the application. Now, in this particular case, again, they can give you an email. You'll also be able to enter your phone number into Lead Portal so they can give you a call, or they may just have it handy. We also have a full operations center of agents who are dedicated to this HELOC product who can answer any of the questions your clients have. So it may be something where maybe it's a Saturday and Sunday, and they're doing it on their couch, right? And they have some questions, maybe you're not available. They absolutely can call in or they can chat in. Our response time is very, very low. Please ask your organization's admins about your particular phone number. It's not going to be this one, but there will be a phone number listed on your client's applications to where they can simply call in and get immediate assistance on this HELOC. So one of the great features of it, I think, is not only is it a fully automated HELOC, we have a full dedicated human staff ready there to answer any questions they may have. Some of them are located right here in Reno.
And Alex, it's a great point. And so I really, again, want to drive this home a little bit. When a client calls you, and they will, and they might say, hey, Alex, something's going on. I'm not quite sure. I'm having trouble uploading something. Always, always, always make your first response to advise the client to log in and use that chat function or call the number listed. I promise you the turnaround time on getting that resolved for the client will be much faster going down that path, unless you have a different opinion, Alex. But really just drive your client back to the portal and using that chat function or calling in that number.
All right, now we are going to get to, in my opinion, the largest step of the application. This is such an important step to me that we are dedicating our next webinar specifically to this. I have a lot to talk about income verification that I cannot compress here in the next 10 minutes. So stay tuned for that. It is going to be, following up not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after, and registration links will go after that later this week. But this is something where, quite simply, they just have to verify their income. We do not have underwriters, so they're not going to submit documentation, nor will you do it on their behalf. We don't take things like checking statements nor tax documentation. What's nice about this is they're going to go through fully automated systems. They link up their account, checking, taxes, payroll provider, whatever they have, whatever's applicable in their situation, they can verify their income literally in seconds. It's very, very quick. But keep in mind, it is going through an automated system. It will depend on their situation. But checking is always going to be the fastest. And I always tell my borrowers, hey, have your checking username and password ready. Usually it doesn't even depend on their situation. You'd be surprised how many people link up checking and they just go ahead and proceed and they're good to go. They don't necessarily need to verify their full stated income, just enough for the offer they selected. So I have them link checking first, and they can do joint checking if they include that spousal income. So this is something where I'll just have them do that and then go from there. And likewise, when they select disbursement, checking is also an option. So this is a really, really good way to just have them zip through the process. And it kind of sets the expectations so they know exactly what's happening at this stage. Now, what I can do is I can go ahead and I can connect my checking account. And in case we do plaid in this case. But Tim, I want to take a stop here. This is something I normally show during my trainings. We link up checking via plaid, very expected. But if we take a look back here at our lead portal system, if we take a look back, we are now at the income verification step. Again, that document will detail in full with screenshots and everything just to be discussed. But if I go into the details of this particular application, this is something where I can not only go ahead and see what their stated total income is going to be. In this case, 200,004 cents got in there somehow. We can also see how much they verified. So in this case, they have not verified enough to continue, 0 in this case. That's why it's dashed out. But we can see from what we saw previously, more information has been filled in. We can see the offer that they selected. We can see things like ownership and financial purpose that they have selected as well. This is all information that you'll be able to kind of track exactly what's going through. And in this particular case, they simply just need to verify enough income to proceed.
Yeah, Alex, it's a great point. And again, I just want to stop there for a second because I commonly will deal with loan originators asking the question, hey, the file seems to be hung up in income verification stage. The borrower can't move past it. Take a look here first. Look and see what, if any, amount of income has been verified. And if you stated 200,000 in this example, and yet they only verified 50,000, well, then you already know as an originator where the disconnect is. And so now we have to look at it from a different perspective. Did they not link other bank accounts? Are they going to need to go the pay stub or tax return transcript route? You know, those are all things. And Alex, again, we can't get too far in the weeds on that. I know you're dying to cover that in a couple weeks, but just know, as loan originators, look here first. Don't panic. Look here. We're constantly enhancing this lead portals and the details page. So loan to values, FICO, income verified, loan amount, so on and so forth. So always use this as your first look.
That is such a good point. That is such a good point. So let's go ahead and jump back to that income verification. I'm going to, again, zip through this because we're going to do a whole thing on this. But in this particular case, I'm going to link my Chase account. So I'm going to go through, you know, thankfully, Tim told me to have my username and password ready for my Chase account. That's where primarily I get all my income from. So I'm just going to go ahead and link up my checking account in this case. We'll go through, give Plaid permission. And what it's going to do is it's going to look at those deposits and it's going to calculate those deposits up for gross income, depending on a percentage of their state. So please always do the gross amounts for your borrower. When you do the inquiry, you have to put in that yearly amount, gross income. And again, if it's a community property or homestead state, they can also include spousal income. So they can link up, say, a joint checking with their spouse. They can do multiple personal if they have it. Whatever it may be, they just need to verify enough income to continue from here. And from here, it's pretty much downhill. We're just going to go ahead and get this all wrapped up. So next, we're going to select the disbursement account. Again, knocking out 2 pages in one go. That Chase account's already listed, but if they wanted to, they can connect another account or put in their account and routing number in here. Maybe it's not on Plaid's list, or they just simply want to go ahead and just put it in that way. That's perfectly fine. Next, because I selected an auto pay discount, I'm going to have to authorize that from the disbursement account to get that discount. Again, it's basically a free way to save on that fixed rate, which I very much like. They're just going to have to go ahead and submit that. And now we're going to do identity verification. So this is what I'm talking about. So as a part of this process, one of the big things is that the borrower is going to have to go ahead and upload a photo of their ID. It has to be a driver's license, state ID, passport, or permanent resident card. It has to be valid. It has to be the actual card. So if they got it renewed and they have that piece of paper, we can't accept that because it is an automated system. We need the card. We need all 4 corners showing. Text needs to be clear because it goes through an automated system. Can't have any glare. We don't have the ability to say have someone manually look at that. So really set that up with your borrower. Say, hey, have your ID ready. Make sure it's on a clear dark surface again. Usually like a white surface isn't too good. So I would say like a dark, brown or maybe black surface, something that's really makes the IDs stand out. And then they can go ahead and either upload a photo. I'm on a MacBook right now, so because I'm on a laptop, I can upload a photo. Or again, if I have a cell phone or tablet or something with a camera, I can also take a photo. It's going to give the option when they're on a mobile device. So in this particular case, I can just simply go through and upload my driver's license. I'll go ahead and do that all for you right now. It's pretty simple. We just need the ID. But again, they just need to make sure all 4 corners are showing please. That is the biggest thing, is someone will take maybe a half photo of their ID with maybe just their photo and name. It'll fail the automated system. They're going to have to re-upload a new photo. So help them just really get through this process as quick and cleanly as possible.
And Alex, one of the things I've also seen, and I'm sure you have as well, where a lot of times client may have a copy of their driver's license on their computer. Maybe they scanned it to themselves from something. It's important to note that won't work, everybody. It has to be a JPEG or PNG photo image file. So if they've scanned it and it's a PDF or something like that, just know going in, it won't pass. So make sure you drive that point home with the client.
Now, the last thing they're going to do before they wrap things up is they're going to go ahead and see their final offer. You didn't see it, but we did a hard credit pull. You didn't see it, but we did a final AVM. Again, it's not going to alert them. We've already got their permission. So in this case, everything's wrapped up and done when it comes to the underwriting. They can go ahead and review. Nothing's changed in the last 10 minutes, so I have the same offer. But if I wanted to, I change my mind, I can hit modify to change that. And then from here, they just simply need to review their loan documents. They need to add on any additional signers, people for the notary, if there are any. We're going to do a final review on our end, human eyes on there to make sure everything looks good. And then we're going to get them over to notary. Now, that's what I say for all my trainings. You may have experienced that before. What happens if I hit continue in this particular case? Well, the system's going to go ahead and try to generate the signing documents. It's going to be looking over their full application for any discrepancies, anything that we may need a human to actually go in and verify either via documentation or just kind of an online look. But just know we are always going to review every single application to make sure everything is ready and prepared for notary so it's a clean process. In this particular case, well, we're in the review process of this application. Why did that happen? Well, it's because I used the same social security number in all my test applications. So the system said, hey, we need to take a look at this. Why are there so many socials here? Now, for your view, and this is a big thing I want you to understand, this is going to be our stopgap for any fraud prevention, as well as any checks for discrepancies or things where we may need to restart the whole application, depending on the scenario. We want to make sure everything's good before we generate those docs to get them over to notary. That's called Gen Closing Disclosure. So in that document I'm going to send out, it's going to have full information on that. The cleanest and easiest way for someone to go ahead and get this resolved is by quite simply having your client call in to our support center. Those agents are doing the review, but if one of your clients calls in, we can expedite that process and get it resolved as soon as possible. So just know there's going to be some back and forth between your client and our ops center. But again, our ops center is dedicated to funding to getting all these applications over to notary. All right, Tim, how do we feel about that? We feeling good? Ready for
Yeah,
Q&A?
a couple things that jump off the page, and I might have missed it. I've seen, the portal so many times, might have zoned out for a second, but I just want to share with everybody how important, again, let's think about this from a tips and tricks or best practices mindset. When you're speaking with a client, and I'm going to hit you from a loan originator perspective here, if you don't already have as a part of your business model to take a look, like log on to a third-party site you might have to check property profile and that type of thing, I cannot stress enough how important it is to know exactly how your clients currently hold title on the property. What we've seen happen is a borrower goes all the way through. And by the way, a lot of borrowers will indicate sole ownership or joint ownership when in fact it's in a trust. And when that is discovered, guess what? We now have to get a copy of the certificate of trust, not the full trust, but we then have to get a copy of the certificate of trust. And here's the point I want to drive home. In our system, there is no going backwards in time and correcting things. If we get to that stage and that's the type of correction that's needed, it's a cancel and reapply. Now that happens very quickly, so don't panic about that, but try and do as much work up front as you can, whether it be understanding a good photocopy of their ID, understanding what their income looks like and whether or not linking to their checking accounts are going to work, or if maybe they'll have to go to tax returns. Understanding how title is held on the property. And maybe the biggest one is the proper name. And I know, Alex, you've talked about it tons of times in regards to doing the actual lead inquiry. But again, if Alex were my client and I was on the phone with him and he said his name was Alex Nichols, I need to train myself to ask the question, is that your full name, Alex? And Alex would say,
My full name is Alexander, as it is
it
on my
is
driver's license.
Alexander, as it is on your driver's license. And so when you know to ask that question, you can also, again, do some homework ahead of time as to knowing how they hold title on the property. Trust me when I tell you, this will save you as a loan originator a ton of time and potentially some headache for the client, because they oftentimes don't understand. By the way, I'll just share with you, Alex, you might not know this, but it is interesting how many homeowners have title in a trust and yet they don't even realize it. In other words, they think they're joint owners, and I suppose they are, but you know what I mean? So from the loan originator perspective, it's always a great question to ask. Do some research, make sure the ID is clean, the name is spelled correctly, it's the full name. Also, something I've seen is you'll have borrowers that have multiple names, like David, Timothy, Michael, Rowan, well, okay, you need to know exactly how it is on title or on their ID, so anyway, that's good stuff. Do you want to jump into some Q&A?
I would love that. I would love that so much.
We have got a ton of them, so I'm going to try and keep up. Hopefully some of these questions have been answered already. Oh, yep. Someone says you've answered that. How do we as a loan officer apply for an equity line? No problem. Just log into my own personal portal. No, I'm just kidding. You certainly can do that, especially if you're already up and running. You'll want to check with your own company's internal policy as to whether or not you all can originate your own loans. But there's nothing on our end preventing you from doing that. Again, Alex is going to send out some information regarding knowledge base logging into the lead portal as a loan officer, even for the first time. And let's see here. Is it possible that the borrower may see only one offer? Possible. Yeah, wouldn't you say, Alex? I mean, just depending, it might only be a 30-year, or maybe it's only a 5-year for some reason.
That's actually a really fantastic question. I keep looking over at this. They're going to be given basically a range band of available offers. So for example, on that full disbursement, we saw that initial draw, it's between typically 25,000 up to what we're willing to offer them. So they're going to have that slider. Same thing with terms, they'll be able to select that in origination fee. But there's a lot of situations like Tim was even talking about, right? There could just be one term available to them. There could be only a certain dollar amount available to them. You know, the origination fee, depending on the state, sometimes there's only one origination fee available. So you are going to see in the inquiry exactly what they pre-qualify for, and they're going to be able to see that on their offer selection screen.
And Frank, you asked the question, this is a fixed rate HELOC question mark? Yes, the answer is yes. This is a fixed rate HELOC for whatever term you and the borrower have chosen. Remember, you'll choose the initial offer. It'll go to the borrower. The borrower then can modify the offer. And you'd be notified, by the way, if they do that. You'll see in the lead portal when that's the case. But it is a fixed rate product and fully amortizing. And again, a lot of that was covered on the first webinar, which Alex, I know you're going to send a recording to and a link to our YouTube channel. So be sure to use that as a resource, everybody. How do we know the specials are being offered? You'll know the specials are being offered because you'll see them on the lead portal. They don't pop up as a surprise. If there's any specials being offered in your platform and partnership, you'll see them in there. How are you offering an interest rate before the credit score? What a great question. When you do the lead inquiry, and I know we went through it real fast because we covered it on the last webinar, we start everything with a soft pull. By the way, this is so important because as loan originators, it's a no harm, no foul type of situation. I get calls all the time. Hey, do you have a rate sheet you can send me? I want to price out a loan. Listen, the best way to price out a loan is to go into the lead portal and run an inquiry. I mean, you can do it in about 2.5, 3 minutes, especially once you get quick at it. And it's just a soft pull. So that's the FICO that we initially go for. No prepayment penalties, Miranda. There are no prepayment penalties to the borrower. Then there is have an elderly borrower doing the process. What if she doesn't have online banking, or are they providing the routing number, checking account number? So there's multiple pieces to that question, Alex. So if they don't have online banking, depending on what their income source is, might actually fall into the bucket of physical income documentation we will review. Things like pay stubs, Social Security award letters, pension award letters. Did I miss anything there, Alex?
Yeah, any award letters at all, or pay stubs, both for themselves and their spouse, if it is in one of those states where they can allow spousal income. Just know those are the two types, Tim. Outside of that, again, we won't take things like checking statements or tax documentation. So it really will depend on what's available to them when it comes to those manual documents.
Awesome. And then Candace says, I have a client that was denied because of DTI, but she would have qualified, and what her purpose of doing the HELOC was for debt consolidation. And so you are correct, Kansas. Right now in our system, we don't have the ability to include debts being paid off to lower the DTI. Now, your question is will we ever? The answer is hopefully. I can tell you it's on a build-out list. It's a huge topic of conversation. But what I want to do on that topic, because it does come up a lot, is I want to give everybody the why behind it. The why is in a traditional loan scenario, typical Fannie Freddie cash out debt consol, guess what we all have? We have an escrow officer and a company that we can send payoff statements to, and they disperse funds. Guess what we don't have? we don't have an escrow officer or the ability to handle, manage payoffs and disperse funds. So that's the why behind it. And we are working on it to see if we could do it. Question is, what if a borrower pulls out 20% or more for their 401k or more for their 401k? Are we thinking that might be income? Rusty, I don't know if I'm fully understanding. Are you thinking about using disbursements from a 401k as income? We do have the ability to use, I'm losing track of the word, Alex. What's the other income source we can use? It's not depreciation income. It's
We have asset depletion when
there
it
we
comes to
go.
that. So,
Asset
yes.
depletion. Yeah.
So
So
yeah, that is something where they can go through and link up asset accounts. So that could be things like retirement accounts, savings accounts, like there is a long list where they can go ahead and link on. So it would be something that if they had maybe like a Fidelity account or something I've seen recently, they, as long as they have that online account, username and password, they can link that up to then go ahead and verify.
and then if not in a community property state, is there a way to use both spouses' income if the property title is in both names? I'm gonna let you take that one, Alex.
Perfect. That sounds good. Let's kind of focus on that for a second. I see a couple questions here around that. So if it is a community property or homestead state, we can include spousal income, as I've said. This is exclusive of title ownership. So they do not have to be on the title. As long as they're in one of those states, they can include their spouse. No sons or daughters, no grandparents. It has to be a spouse. And again, they can do things like joint accounts. They can upload their spouse's pay stub, joint taxes, that kind of thing for including those. Just know when you do the inquiry, you're going to combine those incomes as that yearly gross amount. So if I make 100,000, which I wish, and if my wife made 100,000, we would have 200,000 combined. That's what I would enter it into the inquiry. Now, if they're not in a community property or homestead state, no spousal income. That's the hard rule there. So that is something where, again, there's going to be a great document for income verification. I believe there's only 14 states across America where it is not a community property or homestead state. Everywhere else, we can include spousal income. So it is absolutely something where, as long as they're in one of their states, they're golden. Doesn't even have to be on title. That's perfectly fine.
I love this next question. Is there any way we can get some customer service help for the LO? I just closed a HELOC and it was tough to get some help. Hand up, that's me. This is what we're working on in a big fashion. We are continually improving and trying to increase loan originator transparency or visibility into what's going on in the file. Yes, there's the chat function for the borrower. Yes, there's the service phone number for the borrower. The rule is always start internally with your own point of contact. If you don't know who that is in your company, you can certainly reach out to me directly and I'll help get you to that place. Also, we're constantly working on expanding, the team in this regard. It is one of the number one things for us right now is solving for that problem. So my advice to you is stay engaged. Look for the newsletters, continue to watch the webinars, look at the YouTube channel, and we are really focused on that question right there. I love that question, by the way. So anyway, we already talked about the DTI. Steve asked the question, I'm in Georgia and we're a homestead state, which means we can only use one borrower's income. Do you see that changing? Actually, I think we'd be okay on homestead, right?
Homestead should be okay.
Yeah.
So as long as it is a community property or homestead state, that should be perfectly fine.
And Ralph Thomas asked the question, can we do a HELOC on a property that is currently listed for sale? And I'm pleased to say, yes, we can. And it does change the economics on it. You'll want to reach out. You can shoot me an email and we can have a conversation about it. And when I say economics, it changes the comp structure on the file to help avoid EPO should that be an issue. And we can talk more about that in the future. When will 2023 tax transcripts be pulled? As of yesterday, I believe. Right? I think
That is yesterday at like 2 days ago, actually, I think. So yeah, absolutely. We are now currently doing 2023 taxes, I'm proud to announce.
And Renee asked the questions looking over resources, but can't find what is the minimum credit requirement. We will go down to 620 on primary residence and 680 on non-owner. And so is this a line of credit you can just draw from what you need? First and foremost, always remember it's a full draw at close. Do not think of this as a rainy day HELOC. I love it. Alex says that all the time, so I'm stealing that from you, Alex. It's not a rainy day HELOC, but as they pay it down, if it was a 30-year term, as an example, they have 5 years in which they can redraw back and forth the funds. And it changes by term. And I'll just tell you real quickly, 30 is 5-year redraw, 15 is 4, 10 is 3, and 5 is 2. And you will find that in the resources state. Since Georgia is an attorney state is available there, I'd have to dig into the guides. We haven't had any problems in Georgia that I'm aware of.
Notary is a little bit more complex as we do have to include an attorney, but it absolutely is available in Georgia. That's a manual notary state, so they'll schedule a date, time, and location where they want the notary to occur. And then our third-party vendor that does notaries will go ahead and get them a notary, and we'll also go ahead and find an attorney for that. I believe in Georgia as well, the applicant has to supply a witness. So keep that in mind for Georgia. They'll have to get their own witness. The biggest thing to me with Georgia in my past experience is that it gets a little bit tricky around the holidays because sometimes attorneys like to take all of Christmas, December off, and they just disappear. So this is something where just keep it in mind, Georgia is available. However, it is something where when we get to that notary step, we're going to have to kind of work around those requirements. And so we're going to try to best accommodate for their date, time, and location, but it will go through that vendor in an attorney's office on who will be available at that time.
That's awesome. Tammy asked the question, as far as inquiry, what if a borrower doesn't want to provide social? They just want to get an idea of rate. Tammy, I've got great news for you. At point of inquiry, you're not going to need a social. We don't enter it on our end. It's just their birth date and name, correct, Alex? Unless I'm missing something, but.
No, absolutely. So you're not going to need to provide their social. The only situation where you'd ever require to provide their social for an inquiry is if Experian for some reason could not match their information and it requests their social to go ahead and do a full match. It's still a soft credit pull though, keep that in mind. So for 99.9% of all your inquiries in the entire world, maybe 100%, you'll never do a social, just the name, property address for financing, a little bit more information, including email and phone number, and you're golden.
Yep, and someone says here they were looking at doing a HELOC for themselves and the AVM did not come back with the correct value because it was new construction. I have seen this, by the way. And if I come across this again, is there a way to review the appraised value? Right now today, if you're getting an AVM result, there is no way to go beyond that. There has been some discussion about giving us the ability that even when there's an AVM, to then order a BPO, or think of it as like a drive-by, for lack of a better term. Right now, today, the only way you can actually order a BPO is if there is no AVM results, right? So again, future enhancements, we're working on it. These are on a lot on the build out. So, and Rusty, you're right. Your 401k question is really coming down to asset depletion or retirement type income. There are ways to use that. If they can't link to their bank accounts, well then award letters, distribution letters, that type of thing. I think we could probably find a way into that. Are we looking to count income from the co-borrower, even if they're not homesteaders possible? You know, honestly, that has not come up yet. I've not seen that on any sort of build out where we're talking about adding additional borrowers, you know, spouse or otherwise. Are you planning on adding states in the future? Yes, we are always actively looking at adding new states in the future. I think right now, our most recent one on the build out might be New York. We're trying to head off into. Kentucky has come up on quite a few conversations. So yes, always looking for new states to be launched into. Will you do a primary to be retained as an investment to fund on the purchase of a new primary? Yes, it's currently their primary. It's not listed for sale. They are not in contract on a new property. That is a primary residence. However, I would just ask you to tell you to be cautious about that regarding your own platforms and system. In other words, you have somebody who's in a primary residence, they're out shopping for a home. you're trying to get them a HELOC to give them the money to buy that new home. And lo and behold, they're in contract on their new home. You're going to run into a problem as a loan originator with your own systems on having two primary residence loan files. So just be cautious about that. And yes, we will do them on listed homes for sale. So, or investment properties up to 70%. You know, Alex, I think we knocked all the questions out. Listen, I'm so glad we had all the attendance we did today. Alex, thank you for everything you're doing to help educate the sales world on how to best adopt this product. And I just really want to drive the point home. Look for the email follow-up from Alex regarding the recording of this webinar, links to the past webinar. That definitions page, again, I'm going to say it, make sure you keep that handy. It's a great resource to have. If you have any questions, am I approved? Who should I talk to for this? Alex will be sure, and I'll follow up as well, but be sure to have my contact information in there as well. It is my team, the sales success team, if you will, which Alex is a huge part of. And we're really looking to expand and get better and better and better at supporting all of you. So it's a great opportunity for the product. I mean, there's no question about it. There are so many different strategies that can be used in regards to the HELOC. And of course, the fact that it's so quick. And hey, here's something. It's not going to take you 60 days, and you're not going to order appraisals, and you're not going to go through full underwriting, and you're not going to open escrow, and you're not going to have $5,000 in closing costs for a $4,000 or $40,000 line of credit, on and on and on. So I just can't stress enough how big this product opportunity is for everybody. So questions, concerns, feedback, watch the communications coming from Alex in particular post this webinar. Thank you all again. Alex, do you have any final thoughts?
Just say thank you all from the Sales Success Studio. We'll say have a good day. I will send out the email. Please watch the recording of the last webinar if you haven't seen it already, and I'll see you all in the next one.
Have a great week, everybody.